now. This is recorded and it will be available on the community link that I have provided in the chat. This is a blog. Brad and other subject matter experts will go ahead and subscribe to it. So if you have questions after this event, you're more than welcome to post them on the community. All right. All right, let's see. Well, we've got a few participants. Should we wait a moment longer, Brad? I think maybe.
Sure, maybe give everybody another minute or so.
Doing labs with dual 24-inch monitors is easier.
That's so true.
Can't imagine just bringing a little laptop, you know.
Yeah, it was always painful to see people on their phone with like the lab guide and then have, you know, be working on their laptop and you're like holding it right up close to your face.
Yeah, he just said laptop and iPad doesn't work either. And during this session, I'm going to allow all of you to unmute yourself if you would like to chime in and interrupt Brad. That's fine for your questions. If not, you can also use the chat to type in your questions as well or comments. So we do appreciate that. All right. Shall we go ahead and get started?
Sure.
All right. Take it away, Brad.
All right. Well, welcome everybody to this Success Meetup. We are going to talk about the developer program and then do some Q&A. So I will start by introducing myself. There we go. My name is Brad Tilton. I am a community MVP. I am currently a developer advocate with the developer program at ServiceNow. I've been doing ServiceNow admin and development work for about 12 years. This is my 7th knowledge to speak at, definitely the weirdest one to speak at. You know, there are some great things about it being virtual and, you know, all this content that you can consume virtually over 6 weeks, but I definitely miss seeing people in person. I've been an admin, a developer, a trainer, an architect, among other things on ServiceNow, and my expertise has probably been in custom apps and front-end development, although at this point I think I've touched just about everything, at least a little bit. My profile links are down there, and I am based out of Texas. So let's go ahead and hop into the agenda. So I really want to hit 2 things. The first one being just an overview of the developer program. Just go through some of, you know, what we offer through the developer program at ServiceNow, and really walk through some of the content on the developer site, which is really our main way to interact with developers, and then do some Q&A. Hopefully we get, you know, 15 minutes of slides and 15 minutes of Q&A, but we'll see how it goes. But yeah, that's the plan. So if you do have any questions while I'm talking, feel free to type in the chat or unmute yourself. And we'll do that. I do have the chat up here. It is a bit of a quarantine beard. It started before the quarantine, but I can't get anybody to trim it for me, and so we're just kind of letting it go. All right. So let's start by getting into personal developer instances. So this is generally people's favorite thing about the developer program. It's not, unfortunately, I'm not people's favorite thing about the developer program, but personal developer instances are pretty nice. So PDIs, what we call them for short. And, you know, my guess is that most of you, if not all of you, have either used one or currently have a PDI checked out. But they're really useful for using as personal sandboxes, personal learning tools. We offer early access, which is something we do pretty consistently about 2 months before our releases become generally available. you can upgrade to the newest release in a PDI. That probably looks like sometime late July, although don't hold me to that, depending on what the release date is for Paris. And then it's also a good place to like try out new plugins, all sorts of uses for those personal developer instances. But if you have not used one, you definitely should try it out. And then the other thing you should definitely do with PDIs is back up your work. We did introduce a feature that allows you to restore your PDI from a backup. But I would not say that it is 100% reliable. I've seen people have issues with it. So you definitely want to connect, if you've got a scoped app that you've created, you want to connect that to a Git repo, or export your work as an update set, however you prefer to back up your work, or do all of those things, which some people do. So after the PDIs, we have a learn feature on the developer site, and a couple of things I wanted to call out. Apparently it did not save. The middle is supposed to say courses, not text here. But the learning plans on the left is really, the content is the same in both of these first two columns, except with our learning plans, they're organized in more of a skill set type organization, where you have, new to ServiceNow, admin, and developer have slightly different content. There's a lot of overlap. And then in the middle, we have our courses, which our learning plans are made up of courses, but the courses are really topic-based. And one of the nice things that we do, we have a couple of people that are awesome, Ben and Mary Ellen, who write all of our developer content, our learning content. And one of their big things is that they want all of our content to be really modular. So that, you can start any one of our courses and you basically pull down whatever you need to do that course from Git. You don't have to have completed a previous course. And so if there's one, if you really want to learn about REST integrations through Integration Hub, you can just start right there. You don't have to go through, a fundamentals course or anything like that, although it would probably be helpful. So those are, those courses. There's one particularly that I wanted to call out, which is our source control course. It came out, I think, mid-April, so it's been out for about a month. It's probably, I went through it to kind of test the content, and I probably learned more from that course than I have from any other ServiceNow course. It really goes pretty in-depth into our Orlando Git capabilities, with the selective commits and branching and things like that. And some things that I had not even realized that we had put in the Orlando release. So there's some really good content in there. And then Now Learning has some developer content as well. Oh, I'm gonna speed up because I want to make sure we have question time. The other thing that we offer through the developer site are reference materials and guides. So reference material is all of our APIs, and then we have all of our Now Experience material is offered through that as well. If you're not familiar with it, Now Experience is our new UI framework that was introduced in Orlando, which Workspace is built on. And in Orlando, it lets you build components and add them to Workspace. And then we also have a lot of guides. So a couple of best practice guides, and then some guides on basically how to use the site and developer instances. And then lastly, Developer Program Connect. I already see that I did not put the developer community in here for some reason. Maybe because I think it's on the title of the session, something like that. But on the Connect, we have a blog that the developer advocates, myself and Andrew Barnes, are on pretty regularly, writing content. We have a YouTube channel, which the main thing we do on the YouTube channel is our live coding happy hour show. We do that every Friday afternoon at 3:30 Central. And And that's a show where we spend an hour. We take some topic or some task that we want to get done that we have not practiced, which if you've watched the show is really obvious normally that we have not practiced it. And we try to go through it and get it done, and run into the same obstacles that anybody would run into when they're doing development. We also have a JavaScript series that Chuck Tomasi put out, and then we've got some other videos on there, and that's an area where we're looking to ramp up a little bit as well. And then we've got Share on the developer site, and we've got a ServiceNow dev program GitHub repo that most people aren't aware of, and that's the name of it, ServiceNow dev program. And I'll put a link to it on the community article associated with this session. But there's a lot of good stuff in there, lots of examples. There's some new Now Experience component examples on that GitHub that were just put up a couple of weeks ago. And then one of the other big things that we do is our developer meetups, which are all happening virtually right now, which are kind of nice. If you have done one of the virtual meetups, you can connect with people that are not necessarily close to you, that you wouldn't be able to do in person, but I expect those will start back up in person at some point in the future, is I think about as specific as anybody can be at this point. And then the other thing that I didn't have on here that we also link from the developer site is the developer community, where you can really get in there and ask questions and search content. There's a ton of content and questions that people have already asked, which is a really good resource. All right, so that's my dev program overview, and we've got some Q&A now, and I'm gonna go in here. So topics for discussion are developer program, developer site, developer content, or developer focused, or if there's something else you want to talk about within reason. Feel free to unmute yourself and ask a question, or if you would rather type your question into the chat, we can do that as well. And then I have some initial questions if nobody has anything they want to start with. I've got a few things that I would like to know. So, if you have any strong feelings about the developer program, what's something good that you feel like we do for developers, like PDIs is usually a pretty good example of that. Is there something we could be doing better? And then are there specific content areas that you'd like to see more content from the developer advocates in, either on YouTube or our blog? But yeah. So we have a couple of questions. So the GitHub link, I can post the link to that GitHub right now. And then the next question was demoing. So with the demo question, do you want to see the repo that we have, or do you want to look at the source control capabilities in Orlando?
I think I got the GitHub link.
Just the GitHub. Okay, I can do that.
I already did it. I put it in.
Oh, we have the link in there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we both pasted the link in there. There's a lot of examples in there. A couple of the big ones are the Now Experience component examples has 4 different examples of components that you can pull down for Now Experience. And then we have on the Live Code Happy Hour show last Friday, we built a component that connects to ServiceNow and grabs some data, and that's also posted on there. And then we've got all sorts of other things up there as well. But those are probably the 2 main ones for the moment that are helpful to people. All right, the free PDI is a great feature. I agree.
Hey, Brad, can you hear me?
Yeah.
This is Matthew Collins. I just had a question about there's any plans to kind of consolidate some of the documentation that's out there right now. I've kind of noticed when I have questions about something, I can usually find an answer somewhere, but it's spread out between either like the learning site or the developer site, or it's in different places. Is there any talk about kind of consolidating that or like updating that as well?
Yeah, so there's a couple of answers to that question. The first one is, and this is more my opinion than some sort of official stance, but I think we do have, we do have this idea that the doc site is really feature documentation. This is kind of how something works. And then the developer side is really API references, things like that. And then if you need to ask questions, you have that in the community. And then you also end up with some documentation on high, like some KBs and things like that. And we definitely have heard that that's a pain point for customers. So I know there are some efforts going on to, if not centralize the content, make it easier to find all the content from one place. So I'm not quite sure exactly where that effort is, but it is definitely something that we've heard from customers that I've experienced. I mean, half the community blog posts I think I've written are basically like, hey, here's where to find all the content on ATF or mobile or something like that, because it is all over the place. But yeah, I mean, it's an issue that we understand is out there for sure.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else?
Hey, Brad, this is Alan. Can you hear me? Does this thing work?
Yeah, I can hear you.
So I know that ServiceNow is really pushing for everyone to build scoped apps everywhere. The studio forces you into it. And I've been doing a lot of development right now in the service portal in scoped apps. And it seems like everywhere I turn, the standard stuff that works in global doesn't work in a scoped app. And the documentation is very limited on what different functions and APIs you can use for a scoped app versus global. And the developer community doesn't really have a lot of community forums that talk about a scoped app. Is there any thoughts or plans to possibly do more information, build more APIs out, or give more documentation on how to build a scoped app versus a global? Because when you're using the scope, for example, like GS info doesn't even work. So to do a log or GS log doesn't work, and I can't say how long it took for me to figure out that that's what was causing my screen not to work.
Yeah, so I think some of the APIs being different between global and scope is is definitely an issue. And there are reasons that things are the way that they are that make sense, but it can be painful at the same time. So I think when it comes to if you're building a net new app, like a net new scoped app where you're not doing a lot of interaction with global tables, or you're not, I think with Service Portal, a lot of the issue comes when you're like cloning a global widget into a scoped widget, and then all of a sudden, all the stuff that it calls isn't callable anymore, and you run into issues there. But yeah, so moving forward, I mean, we definitely have scope in mind when we're releasing new things. Like if you look at the Now Experience framework, like it's all just scope native. Like you have to work in scope. Like the components automatically create their own scope, right? So there's no global even comes into play there. So I would say, as we move forward, we're definitely making things more like scope native and scope aware. But for things, and most of our new, like we released a set of applications today, a new set of applications, and they all came through the store. They're all scoped apps. which is really our kind of our direction. So it should get easier to work with Scope, because we're kind of moving towards at least all of the new things being in Scope. And I think we've been going that way for a while. But it is still hard when you're like working with the globally scoped ITSM stuff. And, if you're cloning things that are scoped, cloning things that are scoped that's kind of one of the reasons there's not a global to scope conversion tool, right? Because you have all of this global stuff that doesn't work in Scope, or it's called something different in Scope. I think at this point, most of the functionality that you have in global is available in Scope. It may be a different API, but it's probably there. There are some exceptions to that, but
Thanks.
yeah. I don't know if that actually answers the question.
Yeah,
There's a lot of rambling there.
It's one of those things where it just kind of is what it is, but like there's no date-time utility. The date-time utilities aren't there, so you have to come up with AJAX calls and a bunch of other stuff, or work with it behind the scenes.
Oh, okay.
So it's more where how do we get more information out about what does work and what doesn't work? Because half the time things aren't working is because it's a scope issue, not because you miscoded it.
Yeah. And the APIs are there, but it isn't something that tells you while you're coding it, like, hey, I noticed you're in Scope right now, but you're calling the global API, and maybe we'll get to that point, but I don't know.
Okay.
All right. So we have a few things that have come in through the chat. Kim has scoped service portals, or service portals and apps, I think would be scoped, which is definitely doable. I think the issue comes when you're cloning a global, like a globally scoped widget into a private scope. The idea portal, I also like the idea portal a lot. It's really nice to be able to see what all of the customers are wanting, and have everybody be able to see what customers are wanting, what kind of new features. And a lot of those ideas, have been implemented at this point. And it's a great tool for our product teams to have. We've always accepted input from customers, but in the past, there's been a lot less transparency. And so I think everybody likes the idea portal internally and externally. So Shane asks, what do you think ServiceNow could do to get more on share between share, store, and community and the idea portal? There is a lot of stuff all over the place. Yeah, so we are definitely talking about in the developer program, like how we can make share better. So I think that would be both more content and, make it easier to both put content on there and get content off. So that is definitely something that we are talking about actively at the moment. I think that's all the chat questions. Anybody else have any more questions? I think we have 5 minutes. Any content areas? This is probably the question that I want to hear the most about is, as we move past knowledge, what areas of the platform do people want to know about and feel like we need more enablement content for? Because that is one of my, one of the parts of this role for me is really diving into some of these areas and writing guides and blogs and videos and things like that. Service portal widgets. Yeah, that's a good one. We do have a training on it, but I don't think there's a ton of best practices and things like that out there. So that's a good one. I think hand in hand with that, Now Experience is one that we've been trying to get into because it's so new. and will end up being such a big part of platform development. PA, that's a good one. Yeah, PA is good. We have some really good, PA is not one of my areas of expertise, but we do have some really good PA expertise. And so I would like to see us get some of that expertise into some of our developer content for sure. Going from classic mobile app to the new mobile app, it is definitely a huge change in how the old mobile experience works versus the new mobile experience. Yeah, the mobile, it's really powerful and you can do all sorts of things with it, but it is kind of a net new functionality. So we do have some training on that. And for the mobile piece, I'll post a link. Our mobile product team is actually putting out a lot of, I think they're calling it like Mobile University or something like that. And they're doing it on YouTube. I think right now there's like 5 or 6 hours of YouTube content where they've put out this mobile content, and it's pretty, I think it's specific to the Orlando release, so it's fairly new. But I'll find the link and post that on the community forum. So one of the questions, so agree with Mike. We will, if Mike Foreman asks me to do something, we'll get some more PA material out there. But yeah, that's a really good, PA is kind of a blind spot for me. So that's a really good suggestion. And then one last question, I think, is, do we see a lot of development areas within the workspaces? Are you limited to out-of-the-box widgets and functionality? So up to the Orlando release, you've been pretty limited to whatever we supply through Workspace. But with Orlando came UI Builder, which is our drag and drop tool where you can take a Workspace component, which is kind of the building blocks of Workspace, and you can drag it into a Workspace landing page. And then there's a couple other places you can add components. But one of the nice things in Orlando is that you can build custom components, and you can you can pull in our existing components into your custom components. You can do all of that locally on your machine through our VS Code plugin with a CLI. So we have all of that's documented on the developer site. If you go to reference, it's there. Anything that I have mentioned on here, we will try to put a link to the documentation on the community link that Lisa pasted in there. So yeah, I mean, so Workspace is going, so now Experience UI Framework is the name of our new UI framework, and Workspace is a piece of that. And that's definitely where the user interface is headed. So it's a component-based framework that is not tied to a specific technology like AngularJS in Service Portal, where we were, they moved on from AngularJS and we were kind of stuck with it with Service Portal. So we are not going to do the same thing with Workspace or with Now Experience. All right.
That wraps it up. If anyone else has any other questions, you can always post them on the community. Brad will, on that link that I provided in the chat, and it's going to be there for us. So Brad will make sure he follows it. So other than that, enjoy the rest of knowledge. We'll see you virtually.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody. I appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Brad. Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you.
Yeah.